From Chicago studios, this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Samana Siddiqui. First, the headlines. Biden urges Democrats to pass domestic agenda. Lieutenant General Sami says drone killing of 10 Afghan civilians was legal. We need green armed forces, says NATO chief. U.S. blacklists 2 Israeli firms for harming national security interests. And survey gives a grim view of political violence in America. Our top story tonight. U.S. President Joe Biden urged feuding Democrats on Wednesday to resolve their differences and pass his $3 trillion economic agenda. This was the day after defeat in a key state gubernatorial election in Virginia that raised doubts over the scope of the spending.
What I do know that people want us to get things done. They want us to get things done. And that's why I'm continuing to push very hard for the Democratic Party to move along and pass my infrastructure bill and my Build Back Better bill.
The U.S. Air Force's Inspector General has concluded that an American drone strike, which killed 10 Afghan civilians in August, will not require any disciplinary action. The investigation was conducted by Lieutenant General Sami. Saeed told reporters yesterday that while his review did not single out any bad actors or recommend any discipline, he does not have the final say in the matter. While the U.S. military has acknowledged mistakenly killing Zamari Ahmadi and 9 of his family members on August 29th in Kabul, including 7 children, the New York Times says the inquiry found no violations of law. The Pentagon has also said it was working with the State Department to help surviving members of the family relocate to the United States. In 2019, the Pentagon made 71 condolence payments in Afghanistan and Iraq that ranged from $131 to $35,000. Here's a report by Saleha Farouk about the drone attack that killed Zamari Ahmadi and his family.
Children, seeing their white Toyota Corolla in the Khaje Bogra neighborhood, ran towards it, and it was their last moment on this earth. It was also the last U.S. attack before the last of the American soldiers had left Afghanistan. An Afghan family of 10 with 7 children were obliterated. The driver, Zamari Ahmadi, was an engineer and had worked for an American charity for 16 years. The whole family had special immigrant visa offered by the United States. They had packed all their belongings and were waiting for the word to be escorted to Kabul airport. But the message Washington sent instead was a rocket into their homes. It was late Sunday afternoon on August 29, 2021, in Kabul. The Defense Department said that it had blown up a vehicle laden with explosives. Anisa is the spouse of Zamari Ahmed. He cared for his neighbors. He was in a foreign-run office. He had a flight to go to America today. Why are you lying to us? Where is Daesh here? His American organization agrees. They say that just a day before his death, he served meals to hungry women and children at a local refugee camp in Kabul. Here is Samia, the surviving daughter. Her wedding was set for coming Friday. Her fiancé, Ahmed Nasser, was however killed as well. Ahmed was a contractor with the U.S. military who was waiting to be evacuated. Samia says, "At first I thought it was the Taliban, but the Americans themselves did it." Samia said she staggered outside, choking, and saw the bodies of her siblings and relatives. "I saw the whole scene," she said. "There were burnt pieces of flesh everywhere." This is Arzu. She lost 3 small children to the drone attack. Here are some of the young victims in the extended family of 10. Here are 2 brothers, 5-year-old Armin and 3-year-old Binyamin. And here is 2-year-old Sumaya. Here's Faisal. He was 15 years old. This young man, Zamir, was 18 years old. Farzad was just 8 years old. Some sandals are left while dreams about America are gone. America says it will investigate. In the meantime, the war over the horizon is still on the horizon. American soldiers are gone, but peace is still not here.
NATO forces need to be strong and green at the same time, the alliance's top official said on Tuesday. Speaking at the COP26 Climate Summit in Glasgow, Scotland, Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg underlined that security and climate are two sides of the same coin. U.S. armed forces create 750,000 tons of toxic waste every year. Initially, military pollution was a part of the 1997 Kyoto Treaty. However, it was excluded due to pressure from the U.S. government. In related news, in Madagascar, residents are facing the first famine caused by climate change. Over 1 million Madagascans in the island nation off the southeast coast of Africa are facing starvation. We caution our audience that the upcoming segment includes disturbing images of a family eating shoes. Younger viewers may wish to be excused.
It hasn't rained for 3 years in this remote part of southern Madagascar. Villagers have no crops. Humanitarian workers have little access. Bandits plunder what's left. When the first load of food aid finally got through in March last year, it was too late. 150 people had already died of hunger. Sinazi was almost one of them. Local officials scraped together some help for her and her 8 children.
We were really helpless, like skeletons. We couldn't even walk anymore. We could have collapsed just by tripping on a twig. My children cry, they cry so much, with all their hearts, with all their strength. This one has already fainted from crying so much.
Then there are the rural gangs. Sinazi's family lost nearly everything in repeated raids. Her daughter dresses in an old rice sack. They also use it as a bed.
At night, I sleep here. I crawl inside here. I do it like this, and I sleep here. I'm cold, and I curl up. The bag takes away the pain. If I slept directly on the floor without this bag, it would hurt.
Basic rights are a distant dream here. A safe home, clean clothes, a meal. The family scavenges in the forest to supplement the food handouts.
We eat wild roots, but we are not able to cook them. We put them in the pot. We cover them with water, but it stays raw. The roots are always hard. We eat them, but it doesn't fill us up. My stomach hurts. I have diarrhea. When I go to the toilet, my stools are yellow, and sometimes there is blood. I would like a blanket, clothes, and sandals, but most of all, I would like to eat.
Madagascar is the first country to experience famine caused by climate change, according to the UN. Hundreds of environmental migrants take shelter here in the regional capital, Abomvombe.
5 children and 3 women died. That's what I saw with my own eyes. They died of hunger.
Some are now resorting to drastic measures. They eat scraps of boiled leather picked up from the local shoemaker.
This is how we do it, like this. Look, we scrape it like this. Then we do this, but my knife is not that sharp. Move so you don't get hurt. Move out of the way. We cut it like this. But this is impossible to cut because it's hard as wood. You think we throw this away? Once it's boiled, we'll eat it straight away because we're so hungry.
But the shoemakers face the same grim reality.
We eat it as well. We cook it if we don't make any money, if no one is buying.
The government will build roads and a pipeline and bring in clean water, part of 140 projects to help the region get back on its feet.
Monsieur le Président Radziwiłł a donné au ministre 3 President Raswell has given the ministers 3, 6, 12 and 18-month targets to get results. He absolutely wants these projects to have a real impact on people within 18 months. Of course, we're talking about roads. We must consider the delays in road construction. We're talking about a pipeline. So that obviously is a big project that will start in January.
Meanwhile, the World Food Programme is running out of money to help. It still needs $78 million to get through the next lean season, which starts in October.
U.S. authorities blacklisted 2 Israeli spyware firms yesterday. American officials also said the activities of NSO Group and Candiru are contrary to U.S. foreign policy and national security interests. Both firms have been placed on the U.S. Commerce Department's Bureau of Industry and Security's entity list, along with companies from Russia and Singapore. The decision means that NSO Group and Candiru will be banned from buying parts and components from U.S. companies without a special license. Israeli government-supported NSO Group is currently at the center of a global hacking scandal. Its Pegasus software has been used by governments to illegally access the phone data of activists and journalists worldwide. One well-known victim of the Pegasus software breach is Washington Post contributor Jamal Khashoggi. He was murdered inside the Saudi Arabian consulate in Istanbul in October 2018 by Saudi agents. NSO Group on Wednesday rejected the decision and said it would seek a reversal. Local police on Monday said a Washington state father killed his daughter's 19-year-old boyfriend for selling her into a sex trafficking ring. John Eisenman has been charged with first-degree murder. Police said he learned that his juvenile daughter had been sex trafficked in the Seattle area. They said he was able to rescue her and get her back to Spokane that same month. The U.S. government estimates that between 15 and 50,000 women and children are forced into sexual slavery in the United States every year. A new survey shows 18% of Americans agree that the country has gone off track and that true American patriots may have to resort to violence to save it. The poll found 30% of Republicans agree that violence might be warranted, compared to 17% of independents and 11% of Democrats. Meanwhile, 40% of people who buy into far-right media outlets are even more likely to contemplate violence. The poll was conducted by the nonpartisan Public Religion Research Institute. While there is growing acceptance of political violence, rioters from the January 6th insurrection face charges and prison sentences for their roles in the attack. One man who plotted to kidnap Michigan's Governor Gretchen Whitmer was sentenced to 6 years in jail in August. And on Thursday, 2 members of a neo-Nazi group were sentenced to 9 years in prison for a scheme to attack a rally of gun control supporters in Richmond, Virginia. House Democrats this week called for the removal of Republican colleagues implicated in the January 6th insurrection. This comes after a Rolling Stone expose revealing multiple members of Congress collaborated with protesters ahead of the Capitol riot. The report is based on allegations from 2 of the rally's organizers, who are also talking with House investigators. 61-year-old Muhammad Omar Ali has been sentenced to 35 years in prison for sexually assaulting multiple children in southeastern Texas. The Islamic Society of Greater Houston issued a statement after the verdict. It said Ali was not an imam or teacher affiliated with any masjid in the Houston area. Ali was known for offering private Quran lessons to children in their homes. One woman was killed this week after the Central African Republic's Presidential Guard fired at a bus carrying peacekeepers. The UN mission said Tuesday that the bus hit and killed a woman near the presidential residence. The Egyptian peacekeepers came under heavy fire without prior summons or any response while they were unarmed, according to the agency. UN forces have been deployed since 2014 in the Central African Republic. That was when a Christian militia, the Lord's Army, massacred Muslims. In the wake of that violence, Samantha Power, former U.S. ambassador to the UN, said almost all of the 436 mosques in the country were destroyed. Canadian Indigenous groups on Monday called for a national probe into a program that removed an estimated 20,000 Indigenous children from their families and forcibly placed them into white homes. Known as the 60s Scoop, the program began in the 1950s and accelerated over the next decade. White welfare workers took children from Indigenous families, sometimes with little justification, and placed them for adoption or in foster homes. The goal was to stamp out Indigenous culture. The program was discontinued in the late 1980s. The Canadian government settled a class action lawsuit for $875 million Canadian for those affected, but much of the money has not been paid out. Coming up next after the break is our in-depth analysis segment, so stay tuned and we'll be right back after these messages.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Despite the development of a COVID-19 vaccine, millions around the world will not have access. We need a vaccine that's free and available to everyone, everywhere. It's time for a people's vaccine.
Our fellow Americans.
Right now, the COVID-19 vaccines are available to millions of Americans.
And soon, they will be available to everyone.
The science is clear. These vaccines will protect you and those you love from this dangerous and deadly disease.
They could save your life.
So we urge you to get vaccinated when it's available to you.
That's the first step to ending the pandemic and moving our country forward. It's up to you.
I am what hunger looks like in America. I am an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for the last day of school. Because this may be the last time I'll have lunch. Till September. I am a single father of 2 who works 3 part-time jobs, and that's still not enough to put food on the table. I was created by artificial intelligence from faces of the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger.
Feeding America, 200 food banks strong.
They took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. Dad! You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Welcome back. To discuss the outcomes of the Virginia and New Jersey elections, let's go to Imam Abdul Malik Mujahid. Over to you, Imam Mujahid.
Thank you, Samana. Democrats are wondering and thinking hard, and sometimes they're wondering, is it what's going to happen to us in 2022 elections? They lost Virginia and lost big. What is happening here? We have someone from Maryland, the neighboring state, who is running for an office there. Welcome to Muslim Network TV, Saqib Ali. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for having me.
So you have been a Democrat for a substantial part. You have been, next to Virginia. What is your take about what happened to Virginia? How Democrats lost so bad?
Well, I think, the issue is that the two big bills from the Biden administration, the Build Back Better bill and the infrastructure bill, haven't passed. And so people have a feeling that these Democrats haven't delivered. There's some argument within the Democratic Party, is it the liberals or is it the conservative Democrats? Who's to blame? But the reality is that regular people don't care. They just want to see the results. And since those results haven't been delivered yet, they need to, the Republicans got an advantage. I mean, the Democrats need to pass the two bills, the Biden bills, and then they'll have so much to brag about, new roads, new bridges, new broadband for the whole country, pre-K, universal pre-K, all kinds of great things that they can talk about, but they can't talk about them yet. And that's why they lost in Virginia and New Jersey.
But in the beginning of this year, there were a lot of checks going to people's places. Can't they claim that as a credit?
They can. I think that all the COVID vaccines that the whole country has received for free, and the stimulus checks were the result of Democrats taking control of Congress, and they wouldn't have happened otherwise. You saw that every single Republican in Washington voted against COVID relief. So, but those are things that are now, several months in the past and people don't remember. They want to see what's happening now. So although those are great things, people want more. And the Democrats haven't yet delivered it. And I think this election is a message that Democrats need to deliver those things that the country wants.
But don't you think Republicans are the one who says people need to do things on their own? They shouldn't wait for the government to do anything?
Yeah, but sometimes the people, they vote for the opposition party, regardless of what that opposition party is saying. I mean, I agree. The Republicans are against those things, those legislations. But sometimes the voting of the public is simply a protest vote against the party in power if they haven't delivered. And I think that's what happened.
So what is the risk that Maryland, which is next to Virginia, going to go the same way?
Well, the elections in Maryland are in 2022. At the same time, Congress is up for election. So it's not just Maryland. It's actually, the whole country, what happens in the election of 2022. If the Democrats don't deliver it, we have a Republican governor right now. There could be another Republican governor elected in 2022. But I think that the message is the Democrats have to deliver their major bills. And the items in those bills are very popular in the country. So they have to deliver those. And once they deliver them, then they'll have so much to brag about. Right now they're not in a good place, but they need to get to the good place, pass the bills, and I think then then hopefully the outlook should change for Democrats.
How do you think Muslim Democrats, Muslims have been voting for Democratic Party and only 7-8% for Republicans. Do you see any movement in Muslim votes towards the Republican Party?
No, I don't see that. I don't see large numbers of Muslims switching parties to the Republicans because, the Republicans, it's a racist party and it's an anti-Muslim party. The leader of the Republican Party is Donald Trump, who hates Muslims. So there's not much competition by Republicans, in my opinion, and I don't see lots of Muslims going over to that party. It's also an anti-science party. Muslims generally believe in vaccinations. They believe in COVID relief. They believe in science of wearing masks, of getting vaccinations. And these are things that, the leader of the Republican Party has, he's been against masks. He spent his whole last year in office minimizing, denying the COVID, saying it's a hoax, telling people to inject bleach into their bodies. So, that is really repulsive to most Muslims that I know. So I don't see that a large number of Muslims swinging to Republicans at this point.
But that didn't quite help in Virginia because Trump was not campaigning for the governor-elect, and governor-elect Democratic Party did try to focus on Trump, but not the Republican Party, and they were focused on more education. Education is I thought, a Democratic issue. What happened?
Education funding is a Democratic issue, right? Democrats fund education. In this past election in Virginia, when they said education, they didn't mean actual education. What they were talking about is saying they were complaining that why in our schools are you teaching about slavery? why in our schools are you making kids wear masks? It wasn't actually education. The word education was used as a dog whistle to mean some things which had nothing to do with education, frankly. You know, they were mad when they say education. What did they mean? Did the Republicans say we're going to spend more money to hire more teachers? No. They said when they meant education, what they wanted is that the racist people could come into the school board and say, don't teach about that Christopher Columbus didn't discover America, or don't teach all about segregation and slavery and all that history. That's what when they say education, what they actually mean is don't teach history, and don't make kids take safety precautions against COVID.
Tell me this, Saqib Ali, you have been a delegate, but at this moment, there is no elected Muslim who is serving in House of Delegates in Maryland. Why Muslims are not active in politics in Maryland?
It's not actually true. There is a Muslim delegate in Maryland currently, who's not me, who's in the Maryland House of Delegates. His name is Jay Jalisi. But there's only one, and I hope that there will be more. And I'm currently running for a seat to go back into the Maryland House of Delegates. So I think that, and I'm seeing more and more candidates at all levels, state level, county level, federal level, Muslims running and becoming much more active. So I'm hopeful for the future, but I think it's going to take time. But I think I'm seeing progress in Maryland and other places in the country. I've seen it.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam. Back to you, Samana.
That's all from our Chicago studios tonight. Thank you for tuning in. You can find previous episodes and more on our YouTube or Facebook. For more content, keep watching Muslim Network TV or visit muslimnetwork.tv. Salam and good night.